Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning into the first opinion poll tracker video from the Gavin Partridge channel of 2024. So we have reached election year. There will almost certainly, unless we go to polls in January 2025, which seems very unlikely, there will almost certainly be a general election this year. And so, yes, without the business end of these tracker videos, we've been doing these every month since, I think, the summer of 2021. So, we've been building up the picture, over the past year or two, and now we have reached the next year. So, yes, we will carry on doing these videos every month until the general election is announced, and then these may go more regular, actually, because there's usually opinion polls appearing virtually every day through a general election campaign, and we shall bring you lots and lots of videos during the election later on this year. So just say that if you're enjoying opinion poll tracking videos here on the channel at the moment, please you like, share and subscribe. Show to everybody for doing that, and we'll be keeping you informed throughout 2024. So the first thing you're going to do is go to Electoral Calculus and have a look at their latest prediction for the next UK general election. Oh, why don't we do that? Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and Happy New Year. Right, well, here we go then in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we are, the latest prediction from Electoral Calculus. It's for a Labour majority of 174 seats. That is a landslide majority, very close to the 1997 and 2001 Labour landslides. It is, however, significantly down on the prediction from the month before. No, it's around 94 seats down, that Labour majority on last month's prediction that we showed you in December 2023 based on November's opinion polls. This prediction, of course, based on December's opinion polls. So let's go through the detail there. We've got our party columns just here. We've got 2019 votes and seats just there. And then we've got the predicted votes and seats columns just here. In 2019, the Conservative Party got nearly 45% of the vote, their biggest vote share in a general election since I think the 1970 general election, which yielded them 376 seats. Labour were on 33% of the vote, but were down to 197 seats. That was their worst result for seats since the 1935 general election. December 2019 was a very dramatic election indeed. Liberal Democrats were on nearly 12% of the vote, gave them just 8 seats. Reform, as it was then Brexit Party, were on 2.1% of the vote with no seats. Greens were on nearly 3% of the vote with just 1 seat. SNP took 4% of the vote with 38 seats. Big result with them. Plaid were on 0.5% of the vote with 2 seats, and others had 1.1% of the vote and no seats. Right, so let's have a look at the prediction then. And we can see that the Conservatives are almost 20% down on where they was in 2019 with a predicted share of the vote of 25.7%. Labour have a predicted share of the vote on 42.3% of the vote. Liberal Democrats 10.9% of the vote, 11%, slightly down what they had last time. And Reform way up on where the Brexit Party was at 9% of the vote, Greens at least 6% of the vote, SNP at 3.7% of the vote, and applied on 0.8% of the vote, which gives the Conservatives a central prediction of 157 seats. There's a margin of error, as always, with any prediction. So at the low end, they could go as low as 58 seats, which obviously would be a catastrophic result for them. And at the high end, they could hang on to 263 seats. I think they would be quite happy, actually, after everything that's gone on over the past year or so. I think if they could come away up the next general election, 263 seats, they would be pretty pleased if they would leave them well and truly still in the game for the subsequent election. Labour have a central prediction of 412 seats. That's landslide territory. At the high end, they could go as high as 515 seats, which of course is complete wipeout for everybody else. At the low end, they could be on 304. Now, no, that's quite interesting, because at the low end now, that takes them back into hung parliament territory. So we have been saying in the videos over the past few months really, I think since the autumn of 2022, we have been saying that at the low end, Labour still get a majority. Well, and this highlights the change that has taken place over the past month, or did take place last month. This highlights that there has been a slight reduction in the Labour vote. Predicted vote, because now at the low end they are actually under the 326 they would need to form an overall majority government. However, that is at the lowest end of the margin of error, and the central prediction is a landslide of 412 seats. Liberal Democrats, their central prediction is 30 seats. At the low end they could be as low as 14. At the high end they could be as high as 61. Note that, again, I have to keep pointing this out every month, although the Liberal Democrats are actually slightly down in their predicted share of the vote at 10.9 compared to the 11.8 they got in 2019, they get a lot more seats, and that, again, because of tactical voting, that is Labour voters voting tactically to keep the Conservative out in Conservative Liberal Democrat seats, or to remove the sitting Conservative in most seats where the Liberal Democrats are the main challenger. Reform on 9% of the vote. The essential prediction of no seats. That may be a little bit surprising, but again, that is that's down to first past the post. First past the post really, isn't kind to newer, smaller parties. At the low end, they still have no seats. At the high end, they could get 5 seats, though. And then the Greens are on a central prediction of 2 seats. At low end, they might get no seats. At high end, they could get 3 seats. SNP with a central prediction of 28 seats, which is substantially down, of course, on the 48 that they have in 2019. They're 20 down there on the central prediction. And most of that goes back to Labour. So that does help Labour to get an overall majority if you take most of those 20 and give them back to Labour. That will certainly help Labour form an overall majority. So the SNP seats are about half. Again, margin of error at the high end, they could hang on to 45 seats, which is virtually what they got in 2019. But at the low end, they could go as low as 11, which would be a very, very bad result for them. And then Plaid on 2 seats. They might get 4. They could be as low as 1, and others have a central prediction of 1 seat. And, high end 1 seat, low end no seats. Again, notice with the Democrats, quite interesting that at their highest end of 61 seats, it's actually above the Conservatives' lowest end of 58 seats. So if the Conservatives would go down to their very worst share of the margin of error, and the Liberal Democrats were to go to their very highest share of the margin for error, excuse me, everybody, the Liberal Democrats would form the official opposition to the Labour government. Again, almost certainly won't happen, but those little variations within polling are always quite fun to look at and think about. Now, central prediction of 174 seats for the Labour Party, 174 seat majority, I should say, with 412 seat Conservatives down to 157. Not all that far away from the 1997 result. Okay, these are the opinion polls that prediction from Electoral Calculus is based upon. So rather fewer opinion polls in December. That's because polling is suspended over the Christmas period usually. So there are always fewer polls around Christmas. Although we do see a few polls there, quite unusually. There's actually 3 polls, people polling, DeltaPoll, and we think that were released after Christmas, and presumably polling was taking place with those around or just after Christmas, which is quite unusual. I would say polling shouldn't be taking place over Christmas. I think that the pollsters should abandon their polling during the Christmas week, and come back to it in early January, because how many people are actually going to be wanting to be taking surveys during their Christmas holidays? So there's always a bit of a question mark about polling going on over the Christmas period. But anyway, let's go through the results. So, this is the reason that we have seen a reduction in the predicted Labour majority, because there are fewer leads in the 20s, where there are still some that are in the 20s. So, for example, this poll that I highlighted, people polling has Labour with 22% of the vote. We also have Techni just here giving Labour 23% of the vote. YouGov giving Labour 23% of the vote as well. We've got another YouGov poll just there giving Labour 22% of the vote. We've got We Think giving Labour 21% of the vote. Again, Techni giving Labour 20% of the vote just there. So they're for 20% leads, but we have. However, we do see some that are down into the teens and some that are even under the teens. So we actually have one poll just here, which I think is DeltaPoll, which only gives Labour an 11% lead. That will be enough in the general election to form an overall majority, but it is quite a bit lower than Labour have tended to be polling in a lot of polls. So that has Conservatives on 29, Labour on 40%. That's an outlier at the low end of the range. We've also got more in common here, giving Labour a 15% lead. Savanta, where's Savanta? Let's have a look at that. Formerly Comres, of course, may give Labour a 16% lead. Survation, just here, have Labour on 17%. Survation were the closest opinion pollsters, I think, in the 2019 general election. They were the one that got the result bang on in their final eve of poll opinion poll. So they're always worth taking note of. Survation. They don't poll as much as other pollsters, but they've got a very, very good reputation, has Survation, so they're always worth taking extra note of. Ipsos, ever reliable Ipsos MORI, our longest and oldest pollster, longest standing oldest pollster, just there giving Labour a 17% lead. They're always pretty reliable as well. So I would say probably the polls that have Labour in the 20s maybe overdoing things a little bit, and the lead probably more like the mid to upper teens there, probably around 17%, with the most reliable pollsters maybe. Redfield Wilton, they do a tracker every week. They had Labour on 18% in their last opinion poll. This is still all landslide territory, just a little bit down on the month before, but Labour are still doing very, very well. They're still within, well within sort of Labour landslide territory. DeltaPoll just there with the about 11% lead that I highlighted. I'm looking for Opinium. So there's Opinium just there. They're pretty reliable polls as well. They did quite well in 2019. They gave Labour a 13% lead. So Labour on 40%, Conservatives on 27%. But maybe a slight narrowing with some of the more reliable pollsters in December compared to the month before. Is how the overall opinion poll graph is looking at Wikipedia. So you can see that the Conservatives don't know where fast, really. They're stuck somewhere in the mid-20s%. Labour did drop a little bit from like the month before, so that's where it was the month before. They went down there, have maybe staged a little bit of a tick-up since then. There have been 2 polls released in 2024 so far. Notice Reform really starting to lift up. That's this blue line just here. Reform are basically crossing over with the Liberal Democrats at the moment in terms of the third place party, but that's from a polling perspective, not from a seats perspective. It will be very, very difficult for Reform to get enough seats to be able to supplant the Liberal Democrats or indeed the SNP as the third place seat. So third place, in terms of seats in Parliament. At the moment, SNP is like the third place opposition party behind Labour and ahead of the Liberal Democrats. It would be very difficult for Reform to overtake both the Liberal Democrats and the SNP in terms of seats. Again, due to first past the post. Though we see that there's very little change really going on between the Labour and the Conservative trend lines. Conservative particularly look very flat. Labour a little bit up and down, but still a large gap between Conservatives and Labour. This is why it is looking very much like a change general election that we've got coming up that Labour will win. Whether they'll win it with an overall majority or whether it will be a minority Labour government, that's to be determined. But it does look very likely this will be a change election, given how big the gap is between Conservatives, Labour. I talked about swing back in previous videos. So swing back is where opinion shifts back or swings back to the governing party leading up to a general election. So we probably will see the Conservatives coming up a bit. We probably will see Labour coming down a bit through the election. That's very typical. Not necessarily for Labour to come down and Conservatives to go up, but for the opposition to go down and the government to come up. But nevertheless, because the gap is so large, it will be very, 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 very hard for the Conservatives to claw their way back to a point where they can actually cross over with Labour and win the election. So, as I say, this is very much looking like 2024 will be a change election. Just have a quick look at government approval. So, again, the government is still mired in deep, deep, deep unpopularity. This YouGov tracker. Again, we see that the number of people approving of the government are under the don't knows. I've talked about that before in a lot of the videos. That's always a very bad sign for the government, when the amount of people that approve of what the government is doing is other people who don't even know if they approve of what the government is doing. And obviously, the number of people who are disapproving of this government is at 65%, so a very, very large number of people disapproving of the government compared to the number of people who are approving or even who don't even know. And that's another red flag for the government and another indication that people probably are in the mood to have a change. Time for a change is one of the oldest, mantras, one of the oldest slogans in politics, but it still is effective after a government has been in power for a certain amount of years. People, just fancy a change. Anyway, coming back to the central prediction, and that's it. So Labour on a majority of 174. That is a landslide majority, but 94 down on the previous month. And obviously, we'll be doing more tracker videos leading up to the general election, so we will see whether that is the start of the narrowing, whether that's the start of swing back, if you like, to the government away from the opposition, or whether that's just a one-off due to having fewer polls maybe in December. It will be interesting to see how January's opinion polls are looking. We'll do our next tracking video next month. And as I say, when the general election actually starts taking place, we will do these videos even more regularly, and we'll probably do them daily, maybe every other day, something like that, through the general election. And so if it's an autumn election, which I've got a feeling it will be, I'm always very busy then, so with the day job, which is the weather. So yeah, I could be in for a very, very, very busy autumn in 2024. I better get myself ready for that. Right, okay, if you enjoyed this video, please you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that, and we'll be back with more polling very, very soon. For this one though, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.